I'm here today to talk to you about 13 of the most common mistakes that you can make when you're doing your wedding invitations. So this is for anyone who's planning their wedding invites at the minute. Doesn't have to mean that you're doing them yourselves. Obviously it's things to look out for anybody who needs to get their invitations done. The number one mistake that we see when coming to do your wedding invitations is not researching your guest list early enough. Now we get it, it is a bit of a pain in the neck and it's quite a big task to tackle, but it doesn't have to be complicated. We do have a tool that can help you go through this. It's sort of a little activity that you and your partner can do together. It can help you get it done in under an hour if you're completely focused and going for it. So you might want to take a look at that. We'll put the link in the sort of comment section if you want to take a look at that. But the first thing you need to do when getting your invitations or thinking your invitations is get your guest list together. Obviously that's the place most things start. You can't really look for a venue until you've got your guest list numbers and things like that, but specifically when you come to doing wedding invitations, you'll need to know how many invitations you're going to need. So everything starts with that guest list. So remember, it's not just names you're going to need. You're going to be posting these out to people, so you're going to need addresses. And when you come to sending your wedding invitations out, that is one of the common sort of stumbling blocks. Certainly when people come to us and we're helping them out and we're doing their invitations for them, they've got everything ready to go, but then they spend ages having to research people's addresses. We do offer to print people's guests' addresses onto the envelopes just to save you any hassle. That's one of our free of charge services. So that is one of the early stumbling blocks, is that people just haven't done that research and need to get hold of all the addresses. So get nagging anyone you need to nag now for their address, because the sooner you do that, the easier it will be when you come to mailing those out to your guests. Mistake number 2 that we see quite often is sort of knowing when to send your invitations. People either send them out too early or too late. Now traditionally the sort of time span you are supposed to send them out is 4 to 6 weeks before the big day, but I don't know about that, I don't know about you, it leaves us in a bit of a cold sweat thinking of leaving your invites until 4 to 6 weeks before your big day. I mean, everybody has got busy lives these days. We've all got so many different things and activities that pull on our time, that sending your wedding invite 4 to 6 weeks out before the big day, you're likely to get a lot of people respond and say, sorry, I can't, I've got other things on. And obviously you want all of the people that you love in your life to be there. So when to send your invitations is quite a crucial thing. We do have lots of infographics on our website to help you work out exactly when to send your invitations, but we find that between 4 and 6 months is about right for people. Now there's 3 main questions that you'll have to ask yourself when deciding exactly when to send your invitations out. So things like whether you've sent a save the date card, that will buy you a bit more time. Are you getting married abroad? If you are getting married abroad, then you do need to send them out a bit earlier. Would probably even suggest sort of sooner than the 6 months that we've talked about. And you know, are the guests that you're inviting going to need accommodation? So if they do need accommodation, if you've got lots of people coming from afar, then you certainly might want to sort of think about the 6 month end of that 4 to 6 month timescale that we've given. Don't be tempted to send them out too early. We hear that an awful lot. We get people come to us and saying, getting married next June, and we're talking to them in sort of April the year before, and they're like, we just want to get them out a year ahead of time. And it's one of those things that we get that you're excited, and we really do share that excitement with you, and we want to be there with you every step of the way, but also we want your guests to be excited about your big day. And if you send them out too early, what you're doing is sort of you're robbing your guests and yourself of people getting excited about it, because it's going to drop through their letterbox and they're going to sit there and they're going to say, oh God, wow, that's great, I can't believe they're getting married, that's brilliant, but it's it's ages away. I've got ages to think about that. I've got ages to wait for that big day, and it kind of loses that impact. So don't be tempted to send them out too early, just because either you want to tick it off your guest list, or your to-do list. I'll come back guest list. Don't be tempted to send it out just because you want to get it ticked off your to-do list, or just because you want to get it out there. If you're really keen on getting the date out there to make sure that people don't book summer holidays or don't book any holidays, or depending on the time of year, there may be other commitments that people might have. What you want to think about doing is sending a save the date card out. Now, these are non-essential items of stationery, so you don't necessarily need to have them. But if you are in the I'm really excited and I just want to get my invitation out there kind of camp, then a save the date is quite a good compromise. So if you're over a year ahead of time and you really want to get something out there about the wedding, send a save the date, don't send your invitation. You don't want to rob people of that excitement. Just got one more quick thing to mention about when to send your wedding invitations out, and that is in relation to summer weddings. Now, lots of couples who are getting married in the summer are really keen to get the invitations out before Christmas, just because they kind of want it all done before Christmas, and because they want to make sure that people aren't going to book holidays or anything like that. Now, that can be addressed with the save the date card, as we've talked about already. But if you are having a summer wedding and you are keen to send them out sooner rather than later, what we would just say is to avoid December like the plague. So if you're really, really desperate to send them out, then we would advise the November before your wedding. Or actually, we think a really, really lovely time to send your invitations out is in the January, February of the summer that you're getting married, of the year of the summer you're getting married. So January, February is such a brilliant time to send invitations out, because let's face it, they are fairly depressing times of the year. Christmas is gone, and it's the new year. You've got all those bills to pay from Christmas, and it is a really lovely time for something to drop on your doorstep that gives you something to look forward to. So if you're having a summer wedding and you do want to send them out fairly quickly, or with more notice to your guests, then consider January and February, or November, but do not send them in December, just because you don't want them to get lost in the post, and you don't want people to again be distracted by Christmas. You want your wedding invitation to have impact. It deserves it. Okay, so mistake number 3 to avoid is ordering the wrong amount. You have no idea how common this is. We see people at wedding fairs, people come to our showroom, we talk to them on the phone, and they come in and they're like, okay, we need 100 invitations, or we need 80 invitations. And quite quickly we kind of like say, are you sure you need that amount? And they're like, yeah, definitely. And then we'll say, are you having 80, 100 people come to your wedding, or is that definitely the number of invitations? And they say, oh no, we've invited 100 people. And then we'll kind of be like, well, if you've got 100 people, you only need about 50 invitations. And you can just see this light bulb moment for them when the penny drops, and they're like, oh, yeah, of course. Because not every single person who you invite is going to need an invitation. Most people will be in a couple. You of course are going to have some single people, but equally you're likely to have some families as well. So as an average, what we would say is take the number of guests that you're having and half that number, and then maybe add a few or take a few off depending on the dynamics of your group. So whether you've got lots of families or couples, or you know your group a bit better than we do. But also, if you use that guest list activity I talked about before, it does help you to work out the number of invitations rather than just the number of guests. But yes, don't order the wrong amount. Always roughly half the number of people that are coming to your wedding. Now, we offer to print all of your guest names for you free of charge, so you'll never have to over order, because you only ever order the amount you need, plus a couple of blanks just in case you have any last minute upgrades or you've forgotten somebody off your list or something like that. But so yeah, that's one tip to remember. Do not order the same number of invitations as you've got guests, because you won't need that many. So the fourth mistake that people make is thinking that DIY wedding invitations are going to be cheaper than coming to a company like ours who do it for you. Now, if you are a creative person, or if you're a designer, or if you really do have that burning desire to make your invitations, we're not here to talk you out of it, because if that's something you really want to do, it's your wedding, absolutely you should go ahead and do it. What we would say though is, don't think that you're going to necessarily save money by doing your own invitations, because by the time you've bought all the material to test your thoughts and your designs and things, you might have to change the way you're going to do things. You might have to buy a different material. You might have to buy specialist equipment to make your invitations and help that work. By the time you've added up all the glue that you need, or the adhesive, or the other little bits and bobs that you don't necessarily think about when you're thinking of doing it yourself, you haven't really saved yourself that much money, and you've also bought yourself an awful lot of stress in terms of it's just, we have so many people come and visit us who say we started trying to do our own invitations and quickly realised that it was a bad idea, and we've helped them sort of either with advice if they want to carry on doing it. We'll always advise people, because we're honestly not here to tell you that you shouldn't be doing it if you want to do it. So if you do need advice, if you're stuck in a bit of a pickle, then do give us a call and we will give you that advice. But yeah, don't do it because you think you're going to save yourself money. What you should think about doing is coming to talk to somebody like us, or like another supplier who you can talk to on the phone, asking them if budget is an issue, what the cost-effective options that are that they can offer you. We have loads of affordable invitations. We start from just £1.80 and we go upwards from there, because we do understand that everybody not only has their own sort of design taste, but they have their own price points in mind as well. So we do have that variety of price for invitations as well. So yeah, make sure that you do sort of your research in terms of what your invitations are going to cost you by going to a done for you place versus how much they're going to cost you for materials and especially time. Probably quite obvious to you, but making spelling errors or typos. Now, when you work with a company like us, who are a done for you company, then we always offer 2 rounds of proofing for you free of charge, and other companies will offer that proofing service to you as well. So that's the time that you need to spend really proofreading properly and making sure that there are no spelling mistakes that you need to sort of get corrected. Also, when you're working with a company like us and we ask you for the information that you want to go on your guest information card and on your invitation, you'll probably at your end type that out and then email it across. Now, a lot of the time with guest information, we don't tend to retype it unless we need to, because it's come over as a picture file or something, but we would tend to copy and paste that from you. We do check everything to begin with, and we do give that our once over guidelines and everything, but things can get missed at both ends. So when you receive proofs, make sure that you go over them with a fine-tooth comb, and then also make sure that you are someone with a fresh pair of eyes, because there's no end of times where we've had people say, I just completely missed that, I didn't see it, because you're reading what you expect to read rather than what is actually written. So ask somebody with a fresh pair of eyes, maybe your parents or things like that, or your bridesmaids, or someone you really trust, just to give that the once over. If you are making them yourself, then again, that is a really important step not to miss. Make sure that you have asked somebody to proofread everything before you press that Control P print button on the printer. Mistake number 6, we would say, is giving the wrong time to your guests. Now, by that, we don't mean that you're suddenly going to forget what time you're getting married and accidentally put the wrong time on the invitation, But what is quite a common thing that's creeping in now is that people don't seem to trust their guests an awful lot. So instead of putting the start time down there, they tend to put earlier because they want to make sure that everybody gets there in time. We totally get this. We all know somebody who's running late and is always the one that's last of the party. Traditionally, that used to be our family when we were younger. But yeah, we all know somebody who leaves everything till the last minute. So we do understand why you might be tempted to put an earlier start time on. But for every person who's disorganised and does leave everything till the last minute, you've got another person who is ultra organised and will leave plenty of time factored in for all kinds of mishaps to happen so that they are there on time. So if you're getting married at 12 o'clock and you put down 11:30 on the invitation because that's the time you want people to get there, if you don't tell people that the ceremony starts at 12, you'll see that some people will get there at 11 o'clock. They'll see the time that says 11:30 and then they'll be there at 11 o'clock. So you might well have saved the day for those people who do leave it lastminute.com, but for those people who are organised, they're there a whole hour before the ceremony. We once did that. It once happened, friends of ours did that on their wedding invitation, and we all got there at the start time that we got there earlier than the start time that they'd given, and the ceremony didn't start for another hour, and we were all convinced that the bride had done a runner because we were kind of like, oh god, it's supposed to start at 12:30 and nothing happened till 1:30. So it did get the guests kind of talking about what was going on, just because people expected everything to start at 12:30. So the way we would suggest dealing with this is to, so say you get married at 2 o'clock, but you want people there at 1:30, you would say, request the pleasure of the company of blah 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 on Saturday the 15th of August at 1:30 p.m, and then in smaller writing underneath the time you would write ceremony to start promptly at 2 p.m. So then that gives people who are not that organised the heads up that they have to be there half an hour earlier, but for those people who are organised, it means that they're not waiting around for ages. Not always a problem if there's a bar there, although do expect some merry guests at the ceremony. But if you are getting married in a church location in the middle of a village somewhere with sort of no amenities or anything, if your guests are there really early, that's not going to be too convenient for them. So yes, just think about what start time you want to put on your invitation, and just always be clear when the ceremony is going to start. Right, mistake number 7 is not being specific on who is invited. Now, as you can imagine, we've done our fair share of trawling the internet, looking at beautiful invitations over the years, and there are so many out there that just say you are invited. So Mark and Joanna request the pleasure of your company at their wedding, or you are invited to the wedding of Mark and Joanna. So many invitations just say that without giving either you the space to fill in the name of the person who's invited, or letting someone like us print those guest names for you. Now, if you don't print the guest names on the invitation, you're just running a risk of a free-for-all. You know, you're not being specific. So let's say you don't want children there, but you've sent the invitation to a couple who have got children. They're going to naturally bring their children because they're going to think that they're all invited. Or, you know, if you're sending it to somebody who in your mind is single, but actually they've got a partner, they might end up bringing that partner, but you don't know anything about them. So always be specific on who you are inviting, and be specific on the invitation and be specific on the envelope as well. Again, we do offer that free of charge printing of guest names and addresses. So, you know, we will print that on the invitation, on the reply card if one's included, and on the envelope. So it's always very obvious who is invited. One thing to add to that is if children are not invited to the wedding, so you're inviting a mum and a dad who've got 2 children, but you don't want the 2 children there. Sometimes, and you'll know your guests better than we do, but sometimes just putting the name of the parents on the invitation without the children isn't enough. And you might want to consider including just a small note in your guest information card that says that, sorry, children aren't invited to this wedding. There's loads of different ways you can word this that won't hopefully cause too much offence, and you can find those in the advice pages on our website. But yes, be specific, and if children aren't invited, do make sure that you do mention that in a guest information card. So yeah, you don't want any unexpected guests. Right, mistake number 8 is a fairly controversial one, and you may choose to completely disagree with us if you want, and that is your prerogative. But it's not including gifts on the guest information card. I know, we get it, it's awkward. Nobody really wants to send out an invitation and say, well, if you want to come, we want X, Y, Z in return. And that's not what putting a reference to gifts on your invitation is about. At the end of the day, you are celebrating your love in front of your nearest and dearest, and those people in your life are going to want to mark that occasion with some form of gift. Traditionally, it's really kind of seen as grotesque not to put some reference to gifts on the guest information card. And it is very much frowned upon, and you should expect for the older generations within your wedding party to not be overly delighted. But for the majority of people, and we do have to remember that we're in different times now, people all lead very busy lives and they don't necessarily have lots of time to sit there and research what kind of gift you might want or think about what you want. They just want to be told what you would like to be given. So we would suggest including a small reference to your gift list on your guest information card. And by gift list, we don't necessarily mean a list of gifts, because it's kind of quite old-fashioned now to send out a gift registry, although John Lewis gift lists are still very popular. Most people these days, there's no nice way of saying it, but most people these days just want cold hard cash, and that's absolutely fine, because you know you're going to a massive expense putting on this celebration that you want people to join you for, and sometimes all that you need, because we don't live together, we live together now. Before we're married, we don't have that kind of, oh, we've just moved in now after we get married, so you don't need all of the traditional things that you would put on a gift list. So most people ask for cash. And if it makes you feel more comfortable asking for that cash, you can say what you're going to put that cash towards. So you might need vouchers for something that you're doing, a home improvement. You might need vouchers for that you want people to contribute to. The most popular thing is to ask for vouchers for the honeymoon, or contributions for the honeymoon. So yeah, if it makes you feel more comfortable asking for that, then give a reference to what you will be spending that money or vouchers on. But don't be afraid to ask, because if you feel uncomfortable addressing it once on an invitation, how uncomfortable are you going to feel every single time one of your guests says, so what do you want? What do you want for your wedding? What do you want? What can we get you? What can we get you? And you're going to have to say, well, I just want money. We just want cash for the honeymoon. You're going to have to say that 40, 50 times instead of just addressing it once on the invitation or on the guest information card. So yeah, do think about that, and we do completely get it if you don't want to include it, but just think of yourselves as being really helpful to your guests, and your guests will, in the majority, most probably thank you for that information. One final thing to add about the gift list is that there are loads of different nice ways of asking for gifts. You can find a lot of poems on our website, but Google will throw up loads of different ways you can ask nicely for gifts. So yeah, don't be afraid to do it, really don't. Okay, we're getting through the list now. So mistake number 9 is not making it easy for your guests to RSVP. I'm not going to lie, getting replies back from your guests will be probably a pain in the neck to do, because people lead busy lives and it's not always on the top of their priority list to let you know. I know, how rude, because it should be the top of their priority list. You're inviting them to dinner, you're going to pay for it all, you're going to give them a whole day and evening of entertainment. They flipping well should get that reply card back to you as soon as they can, but not everybody does do that. So you have to make it as easy as you possibly can for your guests to reply. Now, many of our invitations do include a reply card, and including a reply card will, for many of your guests, make it an easier task. The reply cards that we provide are pre-printed with your guest names on there if you ask us to do that, and we also include an envelope that is pre-addressed with your return address on it. So it's pre-printed with your return address, which means literally all your guests need to do is tick a box, tell you whether they've got any allergies, tell you if you've got a song request, if you've requested that information, put it in the envelope, put it in the post. Simple, easy, 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 easy. So yeah, consider including a reply card, or you can put other ways of getting that reply back as well. So you can put an email address down, and you can put a phone number down as well to help people RSVP. The more choices you give people, the more likely you are to find something that fits with sort of them and makes it easy for them to reply. What I would say on that is just make sure you don't give people too many options that is going to make it difficult for you to keep on top of, because you've got to be able to compile that list of RSVPs easily. So don't make it convenient for them for the sake of making it inconvenient for you. So think about how you want to receive those replies, and just try and make it as easy as possible for your guests to reply, and also for you to collate. Evening invitations don't necessarily need to have a reply card, although sometimes it's a nice keepsake for you. And it's not always necessary to know exactly how many of your evening invitations are going, evening guests are going to attend. Usually your venue will cater on a percentage rate, so they'll cater for 75% of your estimate of guests there for the evening. So not always vitally important to know whether your evening guests are coming, but you can include a reply card if you want to. But a lot of people do, for the evening invitations, put down a phone number and or an email address. So yes, make it easy and keep your fingers crossed. Right, mistake number 10 is giving your guests too much time to reply. So this is again related to mistake number 9 in terms of the replies. And yeah, this one's about giving your guests too much time to reply. Now, a lot of people will work out the reply date that they want the RSVPs back based on when they need to give final information to their venue. So many venues will ask you, say, 3 to 6 weeks before your big day, I need confirmed numbers now in terms of who's coming to your wedding. So they'll need to know confirmed numbers, say 3 to 6 weeks before your wedding, depending on your venue. You might be tempted to look at that and think, oh, I only need the venue only needs the information 3 weeks before, so I'll put a reply date on my invitation of, say, 4 weeks before. Don't do that, because as we've just analysed in mistake number 9, some guests will need encouraging to reply to your invitation. So if you do it 4 weeks before your venue needs to know, you're then going to be left with a rather fraught and panicky week of trying to chase up people who haven't replied yet. It's a balance really between giving people too much time to reply and therefore forget, and giving them not enough time so that they're a bit panicked about it and need to work their diaries out and childcare if necessary and things like that. So we think about right is 6 weeks after you send your invitations out. So let's say you send them out on the 1st of January, then we always like this as an example because 6 weeks after that is Valentine's Day. So if you were to send them out in January, ask for replies by say the 14th of February, just because A, it's quite a romantic date, and B, it's 6 weeks after you send them out. So when you work with us, we always work out that best RSVP date for you, which you can override and overrule if you want, of course you can, but we will advise you on that reply date. But yeah, about 6 weeks after you send your invitations is about right in terms of asking for a reply. Don't let people forget by giving them too much time. Right, mistake number 11 is kind of a bit related to the DIY mistake that we mentioned earlier in terms of saving money, but this is in relation to going digital with your invitation. Now, there can be many reasons why you might choose to or want to think about a digital invitation. It could be that you're really eco-conscious and that you don't want to waste paper or card and things like that. You are thinking of the environment, and we're all for that. You know, global warming is the next big thing we've all got to worry about after we finish with this pandemic. But yeah, so you might have a reason like that for wanting a digital invitation. That said, there are ways of, you know, being environmentally friendly, like using a recycled cardstock or things like that. But the main reason people look to go digital is to save themselves money. Now, again, we completely understand that, and nobody's looking to ask you to spend money that you sort of feel uncomfortable with, or that you haven't got, or that you just, you know, everyone places a different value on things, don't they? So if invitations are at the bottom of that list that you value, how very dare you, but if they are, then you might consider going digital. But even if you don't value it, this is still your wedding day. It's not a party that you're having that you'll, you know, have next year because it's your birthday and you'll turn again. This is your wedding day, and you're only likely to have one of them in your lifetime. So yeah, think really carefully before you opt for a digital invitation, because people's inboxes are swamped with so much junk mail these days that it's likely to get lost in the sea of junk mail that we do all receive via email. And also it comes back to that impact that we were talking about earlier. You want your invitations to have that impact. You want it to have that excitement, sort of the impression of excitement on your guests. You want people to get excited about it, and if you don't, you know, what's the point? You know, this is going to be the best day of your lives, aside from any sort of children that you may have or may be having. But yeah, your wedding day is one up there with the biggest day of your life, and you don't want to mark that just by sending out any old invitation via email. So if it is a digital invitation that you're thinking of sending because of budget, just take a look around, because there are so many affordable invitations out there now. And I mentioned it earlier, we do have a whole range of affordable invitations. So please don't go down the digital route just because you think you can't afford it. Speak to your supplier, speak to a few suppliers and do your research. And even if it's not a lavish invitation, even, you know, it could just be a simple two-sided postcard that you send out. But just make sure that it gets your guests excited and it gets you excited, and it really is the beginning. It's the first thing anyone will see in relation to your wedding, so make sure that it matches the day that they're going to have, and just make sure that you do wow them, and because you never get a second chance to make a first impression, do you? So yeah, have a really careful think before you go down the digital route, and just explore all of your options first. So our penultimate mistake, number 12, is not making your invitations personal to you. You shouldn't have to go to a company and settle, or choose an invitation and settle on a design because it's the only one that's there, or whatever the reason is. You shouldn't have to settle. This is your wedding day. You should have your invitation your way, and you should never be afraid to ask your supplier to make changes to make your invitation completely personal to you. Now, we're big fans of introducing personality into your wedding stationery. Usually we talk a lot about table plans and having a really sort of big element of showing your personalities and your loves in life reflected in your table plan. And we do, your invitation is the first thing that anybody's going to see of your big day. So for example, if you were massive football fans, we wouldn't necessarily say for your invitation to be like a football ticket, although we do offer those football ticket styles. You may want to go more elegant with your invitation, and sort of introduce something more subtle in terms of your loves on the invitation, and then use your table plan to go a bit crazy and introduce that personality. But yeah, do look at ways you can make your invitations personal to you. It could be through just a small little line that means something to you both. It could be a particular emblem that means something to you both. But yeah, just think about the ways that you can make your invitation perfect for you and you as a couple, and not anybody else. So just have a think about ways that you might be able to do that. And we come to the final mistake that people make, and this I can speak of through personal experience. I'm going to rewind many years ago to a friend's wedding. He was my best friend at school, and Mark and I were invited to his wedding, and or at least we found out we were invited after we'd been to the post office to retrieve the invitation. I'd gone to the post office with my little red slip saying, you've received mail, but it's got insufficient postage on it. So off I traipsed to the post office and presented my little card. And I have to say, when I was there, I was in suddenly a line of people who I used to go to school with, and I was stood there thinking, well, what are the odds of me standing in this queue with all my old school friends? What were the odds of that? And it turns out we were all there kind of collecting this invitation that had been sent out by this couple that had insufficient postage on, which of course they were mortified at, although it was a bit of a running joke because my friend was known for being a bit stingy at school. So it was a bit of a running joke, but it's probably not the joke that you want people to associate with your wedding. So make sure before you send your invitations out, you have checked the postage on them. Quickest and simplest way of doing this is by taking one of your invitations to the post office and just asking them to check what kind of postage you need on it. So most invitations won't exceed the weight limit that the Royal Mail has, which I think is about 100 grams. But sometimes if you include things like ribbon or embellishments or sometimes diamantes on them, it can take it over the 5mm depth that the Royal Mail stipulates, and then that takes it into the large letter category, which will cost slightly more. First or second, they both have a large letter associated with them. So yeah, that's one thing to think about, is your postage. And of course, that is something to think about when thinking of your invitations as well. Sort of thinking, in fact, don't forget to factor the postage into the cost of your invitations. But yeah, definitely don't send them out with insufficient postage. So that's the first thing that your guests are treated to in relation to your wedding. So there you have it. They are the 13 most common mistakes that we see happening with wedding invitations, and we do hope that this sort of vlog/blog or whatever you want to call it has helped you identify those mistakes and make sure that you don't make them. It can seem like rather a lot, and stationery is a massively overwhelming part of anybody's planning journey when it comes to weddings. We hear it all the time. So your best the best decision you can make is to find somebody who you know, who you like, who you trust, who you can work with at every step of that journey when you're planning your stationery, just to take that overwhelm away. Someone who can give you that advice that you need, and someone that you're not afraid to ask questions to. And I hope that might be us. But if not, I hope this blog has helped you, and happy planning.